Hi, Colin here. Over the weekend, I ported one of my Azure Pipelines tasks into a GitHub action. And while I was working on that, I realized that there would be a good opportunity to experiment with a little bit of ChatOps using GitHub Actions. So the scenario I have here is some code. It's .NET Core 3, but the code doesn't really matter, that I want to deploy with GitHub Actions to an Azure web app. I'm also going to use a web app that has some slots on it so that we can do some A/B testing. So let's dive straight in and I'll explain as we go. So I've got a repo here. It's called Web App Actions Deploy Sample. I just went File, New Project and created a new ASP.NET Core MVC app. It's the boilerplate code. This is not a coding demo, but we have some code that we can deploy. Now in the deploy folder, I have a script, and this script is going to provision the resources that we need. This is very straightforward, just creating a resource group in Azure, creating an app service plan, creating a web app, and creating the slot. And I'm doing it using Azure CLI, but this could be Terraform or ARM templates or whatever infrastructure as code you need to deploy your resources. Then I have a couple of workflows, which we will see in action. There's three called ChatOps. There's one called CI/CD, which I've essentially disabled just to save time and not have that run while we're checking in. But the other three are what we need to implement ChatOps. So let's go back to the repo. Now I'm going to create a new branch, just like I would for any changes to a code base. So let's create a new branch called ChatOps. And that'll create the branch for me. And now we're going to make a very simple change. Again, the code is not important. The important thing is that we have some change to the code. So I'm going to the home. Here's the index page. I'm going to edit this file and I'm going to change this is a demo to this is a ChatOps demo. All right, and we will commit that change into the branch. Now there could be a whole bunch of other changes here. Again, the code change is not that important, but we have some change here. So let's go back to the home page and I will compare and create a pull request. And we'll just take all the defaults and create that pull request. So far we actually haven't done anything crazy. We've made some changes on a branch and we've logged the pull request. So let me quickly show you the web page. So I'll come over here and I'll refresh this. This is on the blue slot, so that's why the URL has -blue. It says this is a demo, this is the production slot, and if I refresh that, it says this is the demo. So we have the website deployed. We also have a slot that's ready for staging and for A/B testing. So how are we actually going to deploy that? Well, as a reviewer that's looking at this pull request, I'm going to first check the code. So I'll go over to files change and this change looks good. So of course we could have a whole review here. It could be a whole discussion, but at some point we're going to be ready to deploy this code. So to do that, I'm going to issue a message deploy blue and I will hit comment. Now that is going to trigger the deploy ChatOps workflow. Now it'll take a couple of seconds for that trigger to hit, but I want you to see a message that pops up in this conversation thread. Should only take 1 or 2 more seconds. All right, and there it is. So the GitHub Actions bot has triggered, and one of the steps in the workflow is actually to put a message onto the thread to say that the deployment to blue is beginning. So let's go over to the actions. I'll open up the actions and you'll see that 3 workflows triggered there, but only one of them is actually running. So I'll get to why that is in a moment, but let's click on that to see the live logs. And it's actually getting pretty close. But what this is doing is this is first checking out the PR code. One of the challenges we have, and I note this in the README, is because this is a pull request and we're not triggering on the pull request created event, but the issue comment event, we have to actually check out the PR code. Otherwise that event is going to check out the master code. So I'm checking out the PR code. I'm then extracting the slot that we want to deploy to from the chat message. Then I create that comment and then I'm doing build, test, and deploy just like I would for any CI/CD. I don't actually have any tests in here, but you could easily run unit tests here. I'm running this provision resources step, so that's going to run that shell script to go and provision the resources, which in this case is just the web app and the plan and the resource group. That's all been provisioned before, so it just ends up being a no op. And then we're deploying to the slot, and we're deploying to the blue slot. And it looks like that has completed. We also create a completed comment. So let's go back to that pull request. And we'll see a second comment here in this PR telling me that the deployment is completed and giving me the URL to that site. So if I click on this URL, it'll open up the blue slot. And if I refresh this page, we now have deployed successfully the code on our PR to the blue slot. Now what I want to do is I want to direct some traffic to that slot. So at the moment, if anyone goes to the web page, to the production web page, they're going to just get the production slot. What I'd like to do is actually route some traffic. So I'm going to issue a new command, route blue, 20. So I want to route 20% of traffic to that blue slot, and I'll hit comment. And of course, that's going to kick off the route workflow, which is then going to use the route traffic task that I migrated from Azure Pipelines to GitHub Actions to go and route 20% of traffic to the blue slot. So again, it should pop a message in this conversation here, and there it is. Operation to route 20% traffic to blue is beginning. So that workflow will go, and again, we can see that action in the list of actions here. Now this time again, you can see all three triggered again, but only the route ChatOps workflow is actually running. And if we click on that to see the live logs, we're almost done. That might take another couple seconds. No, it's actually completed. Let's go back to the conversation, and again, we get a helpful message to tell us that the route operation has completed. So now let's go back to the home page, and if we hit refresh on the home page, you'll see that we're on the live, but I can actually force, I think it's XMS route equals blue. Is it route? I'll have to check what the query string is that we have to use. Nope. All right, let me check what the query string is by using another site that I have that in my history for. It's XMS routing equals blue. All right. So I'll just grab that and put that as a query string in here. And that should force me onto the blue slot. So you can see how I'm using the production URL, but I'm actually routing to the blue slot. If I want to go back to the production slot, I can just hit production here. And now I'm back onto the production slot. Now that is a sticky swap. So for my remainder of my session, it will direct me to that slot unless I force it like I've done with the XMS routing. All right, so we have 20% of our traffic. So every fifth client or every fifth user that hits our website is going to go to the blue slot. We would then monitor our telemetry. We'd make sure that we're happy with the experiment. And once we are, we can then do the next step here, which is to do a slot swap. So before I do the swap, I'm going to revert the routing. All right, so I'm going to route, and I want to route blue 0. So I want all the traffic to go back onto the production slot. So that should take only a few seconds to do that routing. So we're reverting the blue slot traffic manager routing so that all the traffic goes onto the production slot. Now, of course, if we did not like the way this experiment went, we could leave it at that and we would be none the wiser. Only those 20% of users that have hit the website in the time of our experiment would have actually been diverted to the blue slot. So we've minimized the risk and the exposure that we've had. But in our case, we've decided that this is successful. So we've done the swap. So now 100% of traffic is back onto our production slot. So the last thing we do is we do a swap blue and production, and I'll hit comment there. And of course that is going to do a slot swap, which is going to swap blue and production, so that production should now be on the latest version. So let's go back to the blue slot. The blue slot says, hi, this is a ChatOps demo. The production slot here says this is a demo. All right. But in a couple seconds after the deployment. Let's go back here. All right, so the trigger is working and it's going to do that slot swap. That should only take a couple seconds to complete. But once that is complete, we will have swapped the slots. All right, while that's going, let me quickly show you the workflows. So you'll see the workflows are in the .github workflows folder. Let's open up the deploy one first. So the first thing I want you to see here is some variables at the top. I would love a way to be able to share variables across workflows. I could have added these as secrets, which I do for the Azure credentials on the repo, but I wanted these variables to be visible. And the problem with secrets, if I show that to you quickly, if I go to settings here and go to secrets, is that you can't see the values, right? So if I click on secrets, you'll see I have a secret called Azure credentials, which has the service principal required to authenticate into Azure. All right, so I could have added those variables as secrets there so that I didn't have to hard code them in the workflows like I do at the top here, but I wanted those to be visible. Then you'll see there's a trigger. In this case, we're looking for created and edited comments on the issue, and pull requests are just a type of issue in GitHub. So this will be a trigger for any comment on issue or PRs. All right, and then we have the job. I've called the job deploy. It runs on an Ubuntu agent. And here's really the secret, is this if contains. So we've got a condition where the job will only run if the event comment body contains /deploy. So it's looking for that /deploy keyword, and only if /deploy : is in the body of the comment will this workflow actually run. All right, so all three will trigger, but only this one will run if we have /deploy. And then we have our steps as we would for any CI/CD pipeline. Again, just beware that you have to check out the PR code. You can't just use the checkout action because that will check out the master code. And what we want to do is actually check out the PR code. So we're using GitHub event issue number, which is the number of this pull request, to go and get the code that's on that pull request. We're then using some regex to extract the slot that we're deploying to. Then I'm using Peter Evans's create or update comment action to go and update a comment into the PR. So that'll let me know that the deployment is starting, and at the end there's another one for completion. And then I have my steps as I would usually. So I have set up .NET Core, doing a .NET build and publish. I'm doing a login to Azure where I'm using the Azure credentials secret to authenticate. Then I'm running that shell script to go and provision or update the resources. And finally, I'm using the Azure Web Apps deploy action to go and deploy the code to that particular slot. So pretty straightforward. At the end of the day, I'm using an output here to output the web app URL that we've just deployed to. So the code is in the repo. You can look at it. I know I've covered that pretty quickly. Let's look at the other workflows. Let's go to the route workflow. Again, pretty similar. This is the same set of variables at the top here, same trigger. In this case, the if statement is looking for the /route keyword. Again, we extract this time two variables, the route name and the percentage of traffic. We do an update, we do the login, and then we are doing the route traffic to slot. So this is the task that I ported from Azure Pipelines in order to do that slot swap. And you provide the resource group, web app name, slot name, and percentage of traffic to route, and it will do a REST API call. And then finally, we'll do the completed comment. And the swap is pretty much the same. Instead of doing the route traffic, we're just doing a swap operation. This one actually does an AZ web app slot swap command, so wrapping that logic inside of an AZ CLI call. Otherwise, it's really identical to the route traffic slot. And that's pretty much it. So let's go back to the pull request. And we should hopefully have seen the slot swap message to say that we've completed. And yes, we do. It's got the hoorays. So we know that it has swapped. And if we go back to the production site and refresh, production site now has the latest code. if we go back to the blue site should now be what production was one iteration ago, right? Because this was the production slot, it's now the blue slot, but we've successfully swapped that over to production. And to finish off this loop, we can then go and merge this pull request in, just to merge it into master. And now we have that change merged in and we know exactly what's deployed. So I thought that was kind of fun. It was a weekend project that I did in isolation. Hope you're staying healthy, and I will see you soon.